My name is Warren Mendonsa. I am a guitar player, producer, and engineer. I work in Bombay mainly out of a place called Cotton Press Studios, and I have a band called Blackstratblues. So before I moved my stuff into Cotton Press Studio, I had worked here a few times. I was really happy with the sound of the room, so that was like one of the main considerations that got me interested in working out of here. What I initially hoped for was a place where I could be comfortable, just let music happen and not have to force it in any way whatsoever. Pretty happy with the results we've got here so far. Actually, what I did the first thing I did when I came here was rewire the whole place, because I had some gear that just managed to complement theirs, so I installed that in, and then I just made sure like things were placed in the room the way they needed to be. Just made sure that things were running smoothly from an audio point of view. Actually, that's pretty much one of the main reasons I became an engineer in the first place, because I had a particular sound in my head that I was after. It seemed to me at the time that the only way to get that was to learn how to do it myself. And luckily at that time the internet, we had widely available information about different types of gear, because you couldn't really go into a shop and try out everything, and started the process of buying and selling and just keeping the stuff that you really like. The thing is also, what I've realized is that a lot of it comes from the player. You can take a good guitar player and give him like a very average set of instruments and he'll still manage to make great music out of it. As long as you keep in mind that the music and your creativity and what you do with the gear is paramount, then I don't think you should get overwhelmed with the gear in any way. Yeah, it depends upon the kind of music that you're doing. If you're doing electronic music or anything that you're relying on the software to get you your sound, then yeah, sure, that's really good. And if you're doing like more organic music, maybe acoustic or even like straight up rock and roll, I think it may be worthwhile trying and getting your sounds at the recording stage itself before you rely on plugins and stuff. There's a lot you can do with the plugins, but it's also very easy to get carried away. So if you can come as close to the sound that you're hearing without relying on too much of outboard processing or whatever, just get it right at the source. Maybe go through a few mics and select the right mic and the right mic preamp for the job. That kind of saves you a lot of trouble later down the line. For example, you have a thin guitar sound and you want it to be fatter. Now there's various stages in the signal chain that you could do that. One is you could just use a fatter gauge of strings, but that may mean getting used to it. It could be as simple as turning the tone knob a few notches down on the guitar. So those sort of things are because every element in the chain will affect the next thing down the line. So I mean, it makes sense to have your guitar set up well, you have your instrument set up well, generally in tune, which is probably the most important thing, without all the creaks and buzzes and stuff, unless you want that, which is absolutely fine if it aesthetically matches up. Down to the amplifier that you're using. I mean, if you want to get a surf guitar sound, you're not really going to plug into a really high gain amplifier with plenty of distortion and then want to get a clean sound out of that. You kind of try and pick the gear that best amplifies what you're trying to do. It's down to picking each element that works well with everything else. Also, like say you've got one pedal, by enabling that pedal that requires you to set the amp a certain way, and then you go on to the next pedal and that pedal requires you to set the amp in a totally different setting. Then those pedals will not work together, especially like live, because you'll never be happy with the sound that one guy is doing. So then it's also important to make sure that the pedals play well with each other even when they are not on at the same time. I mean, I don't really have too much experience. I kind of know my way around a live mixing console. But the main thing there is just to get the system tuned to the room. If you're in a bright room, you wouldn't want your PA too bright. If that is taken care of first, then it just makes everything easier down the line. So if you know how to tune the PA, then that's half your battle won. The main thing is also finding balance, because when you're mixing in a studio, you're mixing for translation, because you don't know what that song is going to end up on, whether it's going to be on an iPod or big system or whatever. Whereas live, what you're mixing for is the moment. You don't have time to go back and say, okay, let me just do that automation move again. You don't have that luxury. So you have to be pretty much on the ball, and it's like dividing your entire attention onto like 16 or 24, how many ever tracks are coming in all at the same time. You got to be ready. And I guess if you know the music, then you kind of can preempt some of that. But if you're going in cold without ever having heard the band's music, then it's not exactly an ideal situation. So in case you haven't heard the band that you're mixing, then I guess make it a point to, get yourself a little bit familiar with what you're going to be mixing. The first thing I actually started doing in the studio was, engineering for audio, for video, mainly jingles. It's easy to let your eyes take over, because that's always predominant. So you're always going to be, editing to what looks best rather than to what sounds best. And it's two different things, because very often you can mix something using your ears and you think it sounds fine, and the moment you put the video along with it, your perspective changes completely. So you have to keep that part in mind. Pretty much try and run it with the video as far as you can. But then, even when we were doing sessions from the press, some of the parts in the mixing, I did the mix without the video, and then you look back with the video and you kind of need to exaggerate certain things at times just so it sticks out. Okay, then that audio goes with that video. Like say if they cut to a guitar player and that guy's part is buried in the mix, it doesn't relate at that time. It just looks a bit weird. So sessions from the press was basically just capturing a band playing live to an audience, a small intimate audience. Room-wise, it sounded great, so that was out of the way, because a lot of times you go and do video shoots and acoustics of the place is less than satisfactory. So at least we didn't have to compromise in that aspect. We already had a good sounding room. With regards to Blackstratblues, I hope to get started on another album, because the third one is finally out after a long time. And this one I actually was thinking it would be a good idea to get into the studio and write the songs with the boys, pretty organically, just jam together and see what happens, because the previous 3 albums have had the songs pretty much ready before we started any recording process. So it'll be cool. A change of pace as well. You always have to keep things fresh. There's a band from Sweden called Dungan, not exactly on everybody's radar, but they sing in Swedish, so I guess that's one of the reasons why. But yeah, music is fascinating. It takes bits of 60s psychedelia and this kind of gives it a modern twist in some way. Or it's not something that you're going to listen to on the radio and love instantly, but it's worth checking out.